Welcome back to All About Winning Daily Fantasy Sports. My name is Ty Patton. In case you haven't been able to tune into my other videos, I do want to wish all of you a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays from my family to yours. In this video, I will share the fantasy relevant numbers to help identify the top tight ends to target for the Week 16 main slate, and I will also share the defensive special teams that I am targeting in Week 16. I've developed this chart a few weeks ago for each position. I have different categories that I use when I'm trying to determine which players I want to target for my player pool. And in case you're new to this channel, I want to go over this real quick. The green obviously is the best, yellow is middle of the road, and the reddish color is the worst for that particular category. Obviously, let's say for instance here the second tight end is Waller. If you go over to the opponent's DVP versus the tight end is 8, that's in red, but that doesn't mean Waller's one of the worst tight end. It's just for that particular category. So, and over here to the left also, these will be the tight ends that I'm targeting. And yellow means I'm just on the fence, and I'll break that down even more here in a little bit when I post my lineup building video for tomorrow. And that's when we put all these videos together, build some manual lineups and some lineups that I used with an optimizer, utilizing only the players from my player pool. So with that being said, these are the tight ends that I'm going to be targeting in Week 16. First is Ertz for Philadelphia. He's 6,400, pretty expensive. He's averaging 9.1 targets per game. He's averaging 15.2 fantasy points per game. Dallas has a number 28 DVP versus the tight end position, and they're giving up 14.5 fantasy points per game to the tight end. They funnel a lot of targets and receptions to the tight end position. And one other thing over here, Ertz, he's had 15 red zone targets this year. The thing for Philadelphia in this game is they're a small home underdog, which sets up that they're expected to be playing from behind. Their receiving core is pretty much non-existent. They run double tight end, Ertz and Goddard, and Ertz is obviously Wentz's favorite target. So in this game, with this game theory, Ertz is definitely viable. The 6,400, we got to get to 18 or 19 fantasy points to pay off value, the low value. But I think he can get there in this game. I think there'll be a little bit more scoring than expected. This game has a game total of 45.5 points. This is the NFC East championship game. The loser of this game between Dallas and Philadelphia is more than likely going home, unless something happens next week that Dallas would beat Washington and Philadelphia would lose to the Giants, and then there's all kinds of tiebreakers involved. Right now, these two have they're in a tie. Their records are 7-7, and the one, as I said, the winner of this team is going to go on and represent the NFC East in the playoffs, and then the loser, because of the records of other teams, has virtually no chance of getting into the playoffs due to the records and the tiebreakers that other teams in NFC East provide. So I think Ertz will have a big game, and he's in the last 4 games, he's had 8 red zone targets in just the last 4 games. So Wentz is going to go to him and Goddard, which we'll get to here in a minute. So if I can spend up and get to him, I would definitely do so. Next up is Waller from Oakland. He's 6,100. He's getting 7.4 targets per game. He averages 15 fantasy points per game. The Chargers only give up 10.9 fantasy points per game to the tight end position, and they have a DVP of 8 versus the tight end. He's had 11 red zone targets. He gets a lot of targets. He's a big part of their passing game. Josh Jacobs has been ruled out, so they'll be relying on DeAndre Washington. The thing is, I think Oakland has just outside chance at the playoffs. They are definitely on playoff life support and all kinds. I mean, they don't control their own destiny, and the Chargers are out of the playoff picture as well. Waller gets, as I said, gets a lot of targets. They are an underdog of 6.5 points, so it's expected that they'll be playing from behind, which leads you to believe that they'll be throwing the ball. It's 6,100, but the thing about 6,100 is I would probably want to spend the extra 300 or find a 300 somewhere and get up to Ertz. But Waller is definitely viable and a nice pivot off of Ertz. Ertz will probably be have a high ownership tomorrow, but he's definitely playable in all formats tomorrow. And another thing, one other thing about Waller is he's averaging 18.87 fantasy points per game in 6 games away from home this year. Next up is Andrews. I like Andrews as a stack piece with Lamar Jackson. Jackson, as I've mentioned in my quarterback video, I don't mind running him out there without a target. Andrews is 5,900, so 500 cheaper than Ertz. He's averaging 6.4 targets per game, 13.4 fantasy points per game. Cleveland has a 12 DVP versus the tight end position, and they only give up 11.6 fantasy points per game to the tight end. Andrews has had 13 red zone targets, but there are other tight ends on this team which kind of steer me away from Andrews. I will use Andrews when I'm using Jackson in some game stacks. I won't use Andrews as a one-off. He would be a nice pivot off the others, but he's still within range of Ertz. He's only $500 cheaper, and I would probably much rather go that route. But he is definitely usable and one of Lamar Jackson's favorite targets. Next is Hunter Henry. He's averaged 14 fantasy points per game in the 4 games that he's played against Oakland. I got him in yellow, kind of on the fence with him. The price is good in comparison to the others, and he has just as much upside as the other tight ends on the main slate. He's averaging 6.3 targets per game, 13 fantasy points per game. Oakland has a 26 DVP versus the tight end position, and they give up 14.3 fantasy points per game to the tight end. He's had 8 red zone targets, and take into consideration he did miss some time for injuries. But here we are in a game that has no playoff implications, so it's kind of, you're taking a risk. I mean, what are they going to do? Are they going to rely on the running game? Because these teams are, the Chargers and Oakland are basically just playing out the season. I think, as I mentioned, I think Oakland has a slim outside chance, but I don't think it's anything that's going to come to fruition for them. I like Henry, as I said, and when I'm using Rivers, I would definitely use him and maybe team up Hunter Henry and Keenan Allen with Rivers and bring it back with some of the Oakland players as well. Austin Hooper for Atlanta, he's 4,400. I feel like Hooper is majorly underpriced. He has averaged 19.63 fantasy points per game in the 3 games that they have been favored. He's averaging 7.2 targets per game, 15.6 fantasy points per game. Now, Jacksonville has a DVP of 16, so that's about middle for the NFL, and they only give up 12.2 fantasy points per game to the tight end position. He's had 15 red zone targets. Calvin Ridley is out, so it's Julio Jones and Hooper, and I believe they also have Gage as well as wide receiver too. So there's a lot there for him. 4,400 doesn't take much for him to pay off value. Yeah, the value for him is actually lower than what his average is for fantasy points scored per game. And I like Hooper a lot. I also like Matt Ryan and stacking that game. But here again, you have some teams that don't have any playoff hopes, playing out the season for pride. And I will have some shares of him. I'm interested to see what the ownership is. He might be a really nice pivot off of Ertz as well. Next is Hollister from Seattle. This is the cheat code. He is 4,200. He's averaging 5.6 targets per game, 9.5 fantasy points per game. What I meant by cheat code is this right here. Number 32 DVP, Arizona is versus the tight end position. They give up 20.5 fantasy points per game to the tight end position. They funnel targets and receptions to the tight end. I have been streaming tight ends all year and basically plugging them in the tight end that plays against Arizona, and it has worked out for me. He's also received 8 red zone targets, and Seattle is a 10-point home favorite, and this sets up real nice for him. He doesn't have any competition as far as any other tight ends that would take targets away from him. You do have Tyler Lockett on one side and DK Metcalf on the other. But I really like Hollister at that price. But sitting there 200 less than Hooper, I would probably try to spend up to get to Hooper. Next is Goddard. I have him in yellow. Obviously, the main target in this offense is going to be Ertz tomorrow, but Goddard might be a sneaky pivot off of Ertz. Dallas gives a lot of attention to Ertz. Then Goddard could be in for a big day. He's only 4,100. He's averaging 4.9 targets per game, 8.6 fantasy points per game. Dallas is number 28 in DVP versus the tight end position. They give up 14.5 fantasy points per game to the tight end. He's had 10 red zone targets in comparison to 15 for Ertz. And they run the double tight end a lot. He does get his target shares. With the way their receiving corps is beat up, their receivers tomorrow comes down to Ertz and Goddard, and I believe Greg Ward, who is a converted college quarterback, as the wide receiver one. So I believe these tight ends for Philadelphia will be very busy in this NFC East Championship game tomorrow. Next is Gesicki from Miami. He's 3,600. He's getting 5.4 targets per game. He's averaging 7.5 fantasy points per game. Cincinnati has a DVP of 7 versus the tight end, and they only give up 10.6 fantasy points per game to the tight end. That's because a lot of teams just run the ball on Cincinnati. I talked about this in my previous video of wide receivers. They just get shredded by the running game, but Miami's running game isn't that formidable, and I could see Fitzpatrick putting the ball in the air a lot in this game. I like Gesicki as part of game stack with that game. I like a lot of pieces in that game to stack, so that allows me to spend up in other areas. Caden Smith from the Giants, he's 3,200. Daniel Jones is due back. Jones, before he got injured, would target his tight ends a lot. Smith is averaging 4.6 targets per game, 7.3 fantasy points per game. Playing Washington, who has a DVP of 27 versus the tight end position, giving up 14.4 fantasy points per game to the tight end. He's only had 2 red zone targets. Again, this is 2 teams that aren't playing for anything, but I really have a lot of interest in Smith at that price that allows you to spend up elsewhere. I'm not the kind of DFS builder that punts any position. I want as much value as I can get, obviously, and I believe, and it doesn't take much for him to pay off that 3,200. So I have a lot of interest in Smith tomorrow. So wrapping up my tight ends briefly for tomorrow, Zach Ertz, Darren Waller, Mark Andrews from Baltimore, Hunter Henry from the Chargers. I'm on the fence with that, and I'll address that when we come back and do the lineup building video here shortly. Austin Hooper for Atlanta. I like him a lot. I think he's really underpriced at 4,400. Hollister for Seattle. It's cheat code against Arizona. You want to play tight ends that are playing against Arizona. They're the worst in the NFL, and they funnel targets and receptions to the tight end position. Goddard for Philadelphia. As I mentioned, Philly's really beat up at the wide receiver position. Their wide receiver one is a converted college quarterback, Greg Ward. And the other big piece of this offense is going to be Ertz. They are an underdog at home NFC East Championship game. I believe their tight ends are going to be very busy tomorrow. Gesicki from Miami, 3,600, and Caden Smith from the Giants at 3,200. Those are my tight ends that I am going to be targeting in Week 16. Now, as I always do, I'll also give you some defenses that I'm targeting with reasons why. These are the 4 defenses that I have a lot of interest in this week. I like defenses that are larger favorites. And my thought behind that is if they're favored to be winning the game and favored by a lot, then the other team's going to be putting the ball in the air to try to catch up. It just makes sense. That's the game script of that. Doesn't always play out that way, but if Cleveland is behind, they're not going to be relying on Nick Chubb to try to catch up. They're going to have Mayfield out there trying to throw the ball around. And he does have some good receivers, but Mayfield has turned the ball over some this year. And Baltimore, this is a revenge game for them. They are playing for a lot. They're trying to secure home field advantage throughout the playoffs. They've already won the division, and I have a lot of interest. 4,000 is kind of steep, and to me, 4,000 is a player position. So I don't normally spend all the way up for defenses, but I'll be checking the ownership, and if they're lower owned, I might just go up this week. I generally, if it looks like people are going to spend up at defense, I'll spend down. If they're going to spend down, I'll spend up. So I'll look at that. And as I said, I have some notes right here: 10-point favorite, revenge, and game script. It fits a lot of the boxes that I look for in a defense. Next is Denver. They're $500 cheaper than Baltimore. 3,500. They're a home favorite facing a rookie quarterback. These are definitely things that I look for and target. Denver has a really good pass defense. They're playing at home. Detroit's coming in with a rookie quarterback. They're only a 7-point home favorite. Low game total. Blow from Detroit has turned the ball over some. 3,500 is definitely doable. The first ownership numbers I seen, they were one of the higher owns, if not the highest owned. So I'll have to consider that. But I will have some shares of Denver. I like correlating my defenses with a running back as well. It just makes sense. But they are definitely a playable defense tomorrow. The Colts at home versus Carolina, they're 3,300. You have the Christian McCaffrey factor. However, you also have a rookie quarterback who's making his first NFL start on the road at Indianapolis, and that's Will Grier for Carolina. I'm sure McCaffrey's going to get his, but it's just something that I like to target. In rookie quarterbacks, they're only 3,300, and a nice spin down option pivot off of Baltimore and Denver. Tennessee versus New Orleans. They're my low spin down option this week. They're 2,100, so it doesn't take much to get value. They're coming off a loss. Everyone sees New Orleans coming off that big win on Monday night, so naturally probably a lot of attention will go towards New Orleans, and Tennessee will be really under-owned. And New Orleans has trouble on the road. They're not as good as they are at home. Big emotional game. They will have trouble with Michael Thomas, but if they keep this game competitive, I could see them in a situation, and something like nobody's immune to a strip sack, fumble, pick six. Breeze doesn't turn the ball over much, but I definitely like Tennessee. As I said here, this is my lowest spin down option tomorrow. Just a hunch and the value that it involves. So recapping those real quick, we have Baltimore, Denver, Indianapolis, and Tennessee as the four defenses that I'll be targeting in week 16. I want to thank you guys for joining me. I encourage you to please drop any opinions or comments that you may have below. Please share this video, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. My subscriptions have been going up, and my viewers have went way up. And I'd really like for the viewers to become subscribers. It doesn't cost anything. I got some really good information. I'm trying to build this channel, and I've actually exceeded my expectations in my first year doing this. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time to check out the information that I have. I'll be back shortly to put all this together and do some lineup building where I take all the players that I've identified in my previous videos. I put them all together. I build some manual lineups. I recap them all, build some manual lineups. I also use an optimizer using just those players, and I share a lineup or two with you guys for that. I just want to show you my process, not necessarily that I'm giving you picks or a lineup that you can run out and play. So use this information how you would like. I'm just trying to give you a lot of information. Encourage you to screenshot this chart, use it how you like, stop the video however, and use these numbers and build some winning lineups. You can also follow me on Twitter at winningabout, and As I mentioned, I'll be back shortly. My name is Ty Patton. This is all about winning daily fantasy sports, and I'll see you guys again real soon. Thank you.